Ken Trahan with Lenny Vangilder. It's our First NBC Bank Weekend Review, brought to you by First NBC Bank with 35 locations throughout Southeast Louisiana and now in the Florida Panhandle. That's First NBC Bank, proud sponsor of SportsNOLA.com. The New Orleans Pelicans played well in Los Angeles without Anthony Davis against the Clippers, but could not get a game winner in regulation, lost in overtime. Encouraging performance, but right now you don't get any points for effort.
No, you don't. No moral victories. A great defensive effort down the stretch in regulation. Like you mentioned, had 3 or 4 chances at three-pointers that would have given them the lead down 2 late in regulation. Couldn't do it. Give Drew Holiday credit. Did a great job of drawing a foul right at the end of regulation on a three-point attempt. Got to the line, made all 3 in a pressure situation to send the game to overtime, but just could not get it done at that point. And that's, again, you like to say, no moral victories, but it was definitely a better effort than what we've seen the last 2 times out.
Certainly was, but they continue to slide further down the list in terms of potential for playoffs, and at some point you start thinking about the draft and the balls in the hopper because of that one special player that, by the way, had a big game at Florida over the weekend and a losing cause for LSU.
He did, and but unfortunately LSU came out on the short end, and ironically, Tuesday night against Kentucky, he wasn't that great, but LSU managed to win the game, got other people involved. He was trying to get other people involved as well, and he's very good at doing that and did put up some significant individual numbers with 29 and 17, but this is an LSU team that's playing better here, at least the last 3 games, than they were in the month of December. Now they just got to try to get back to the winning ways.
Yes, Florida defended very well in that game, and they deserve to win. UNO, a close loss. UNO playing, I think, inspired basketball. They've done a nice job competing this year. Tulane, not so much. Another loss. They're 0-4 in conference.
Yeah, and UNO gets a chance to come home to play, if you will, a real team. They haven't played a Division I team yet at home. They finally get a chance to do that on Monday night. And that's the nice thing about Southland Conference plays. You've got some of these regional rivals that you'll get to see a chance come through. It'll happen more in the back half of the schedule, at least as far as UNO is concerned. As far as Tulane, they, like you say, they're 0-4 in the league. They've got South Florida next, the only other winless team in the league. One of them's got to win. So, they've just got to get things going on the right track, much like the Pelicans.
Sticking with basketball, the 6th annual All-State Sugar Bowl National Prep Classic was another success this past weekend at the Hilario Center. We hope to have the Platinum Girls Final and the boys. You can watch both. 20.
Yep. Monday, 4 o'clock, the Girls Platinum Final, Mount Carmel against Warren Easton. Sure to stay with it the whole way. If you think it's over, it's not. And then a terrific boys final between Riverside and Carr. That will air Tuesday at 5 p.m. on WHNO TV 20. So be sure to check them out.
Yeah, I think you'll enjoy doing so, and you'll see some really good high school basketball, both girls and boys. So make sure you do so, and don't miss SportsNOLA TV Monday night at 6 p.m. We'll talk about all these things we just mentioned and more, including the Saints, with Ricky Jackson, Brian Ellie Walsh, and I on SportsNOLA TV. The NFL playoffs wildcard weekend is over with. I had 3 of the 4 winners, but I easily could have been 1-3 just based upon the way Cincinnati imploded and the way Minnesota basically just blew it.
Back in the day, you and I are old enough to remember so many of those frustrating Saints losses for what seemed like decades. It took 33 years for this franchise to finally win a playoff game. You feel for the people in Cincinnati and Minnesota a little bit if you experience any of those kinds of Saints losses over the years. And that's tough. Cincinnati, you think about this. What is the glass half empty or half full? They've lost in the first round 5 years in a row in the playoffs. But the glass half full is they've been in the playoffs 5 years in a row. Which way do you do it? And then, of course, Minnesota. They've been really punched in the gut, maybe more so than anybody over our lifetimes, going back to Hail Mary and Drew Pearson of whether he pushed off or not, to losing the game the way they did on Sunday, missing a chip shot field goal at the end.
Yeah, it's really been difficult for them, and obviously those were 2 games that could have gone the other way. Not so much in Houston, where Kansas City was totally dominant against a hapless Houston team, or in the nation's capital, where Green Bay dominated in the second half to beat the Redskins. And I think what that tells us is what I wrote at SportsNOLA.com. 1, experience matters in the playoffs. 2, experienced quarterbacks matter in the playoffs. And 3, don't ignore the divisions that teams played in, because Houston and Washington were paper tigers. They played in bad divisions.
You know, you bring that up, and those are very good points. And, oh, by the way, that's the two divisions that the Saints and the rest of the NFC South played this year. But it hasn't been the case up until this year. I mean, you had a 7-8-1 Carolina team get in last year, beat Arizona in the first round of the playoffs. Remember a few years ago, you had an 8-8 San Diego team beat Peyton Manning and the Colts in the first round of the playoffs. We so well remember when the Saints had to go travel to a 7-9 Seattle team, and whether the home, we're saying, should these teams with bad records really be able to host a first round game? Well,
No.
we know what happened there with Seattle. So this was what you thought should happen in terms of that, but it hasn't been the rule up until now.
Correct. And now we get some better matchups, I think, moving forward to next weekend. It's going to be fun to watch. And listen, before it started, I thought that both number 6 seeds had a great chance to get to the Super Bowl. Seattle escaped. Don't forget that, because that might be what pushes them forward. In the case of Pittsburgh, I think it's all about relative health.
It is, and they're pretty beat up. And, what's Roethlisberger's situation, what's Brown's situation, what's their running back situation, so many things that we'll have to keep an eye on between now and the weekend.
Yeah, because their offense is what makes them go. So looking forward to it. That is our First NBC Bank Weekend Review, brought to you by First NBC Bank with 35 locations throughout the greater New Orleans area and beyond. That's First NBC Bank, proud sponsor of SportsNOLA.com. He's Lenny. I'm Kenny. Have a great week, and God bless you.